I don't want to see Steve Trevor ever again.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Is How It Starts. My name is Amy Stemland, and thank you again for taking the time to hit play. Now, I grew up in the period just before the boom of the home internet, so I'm part of a generation who knows a life that's very analog, and I also know a world where technology controls nearly all aspects of life. In this episode, you're about to hear what happens when two people who first met during those early days of the internet finally get to mix it up face to face in real time, so I'm excited to share this moment with you. Today, I'm speaking with Robert Jones Jr., the award-winning and New York Times best-selling author of The Prophets, a Black queer love story between two men in the antebellum American South, widely regarded as a new classic novel in the vein of famed authors James Baldwin and Toni Morrison. In 2008, Robert started his blog Son of Baldwin, where he built a large social media following through his intersectional social commentary on race, sexuality, gender, disability, politics, and more. I've been a big follower of his thoughtful and sometimes controversial commentary for a long time. And now, my first ever conversation with Robert Jones Jr. Is that New York Times bestselling author Robert Jones Jr.?
How are you?
I'm doing well, Robert. Thank you. I'm so happy you're here today. Now, full disclosure, this is our first time ever speaking in real time. So I'm really excited and maybe a little nervous to have a completely fresh conversation with you. And this may or may not be part of an elaborate ruse to just hear more of your beautiful voice.
Amy, my sister in the Jan fam, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, that's how we connected, was through our love of Janet Jackson. And just for the home listener, we just happen to be wearing matching shirts today. We're both wearing our Velvet Rope Janet Jackson shirts, so we are definitely on the same wavelength today.
We met digitally in the old early internet stages of like Janet Zone and those like message boards for Janet fans where you used to post your art.
Okay, so we're like early Web 2.0 here.
Yes. It's been like since the 90s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I could not remember if it was actually that far back or if it was more like the social media days, because certainly as you created Son of Baldwin, I remember being far more aware of your activities. So yeah, just racking my brain, trying to figure out when did it all start for us?
Right. It's so hard to remember because I didn't have that Son of Baldwin persona when we knew each other. I can't even remember what my screen names were back in those days. But I definitely know that we met on one of the early Janet message boards.
That's amazing. Yeah, so many other friends that I've been connected to through Janet have been friends for decades now. And I'm just so grateful for that whole experience and that we came up in that time, sort of a magical time.
Yes, that was quite a time.
So, Robert, when I was thinking about doing this podcast, I had been thinking a lot about this whole economy of attention and this notion of quote unquote influencers who've never really done anything of influence, and how being a miserable troll became a marketable persona, and how other brilliant people just sort of toil in obscurity, or even worse, they are received with disdain or even scorn. Um, and I, for one, I'm just so glad that you're one of those brilliant minds who is having a bit of a breakthrough with the release of your book, The Prophets, a New York Times bestseller. And I also think you're just a wonderful example of someone who shines a light on other amazing artists and writers. Now, I'm not very knowledgeable in the literary space, so I have truly been a beneficiary of all your knowledge and recommendations and the commentary you've shared over the years. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
You're so right about what could have been a really important, in a good way, space is really becoming something that I call the digital Roman Colosseum, where it's fashionable to be harmful to other people. And let me implicate myself first. When I first started Son of Baldwin, I wasn't always looking for the better in other people. I was one of those people that got joy from tearing other people down and putting myself on a pedestal and attributing myself to the moral high ground. But quickly learned, or maybe not so quickly learned, how awful that actually was making me feel, and how bad and what an awful example of humanity I was displaying, And James Baldwin helped me a great deal in this way to realize that the things I do to other people, I'm really doing to myself. And so once all of that started to come home for me and make sense to me and really strike at my spirit, I said, I want to move in a different kind of way. I want to move in a way that lifts people up. Even as I critique these systems of oppression, I still don't want to be dragged down into the mire of targeting people, using my voice as a way to harm. I only want to be of service.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've certainly had some moments I'm not so proud of. A very similar awareness came up for me. I too was sort of having these reactions to things that frustrated me or where I just felt justified in my righteous indignation, but trying to be more mindful and try to find a better way, trying to be the change.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage to implicate yourself and acknowledge how you may have unintentionally played a role. That's not easy to do. So I commend you for that awareness, and I really respect you for that, and I hope to model that as well. So shifting back to your brilliance for just a moment, congratulations again on the success of your debut novel, The Prophets. As I previously mentioned, it's an award-winning New York Times best-selling book. So what has life been like since the release of the book?
It has been quite surreal. Um, I never knew what it would be like to have a lifelong wish come true.
Mm.
I have always wanted to be a published writer, even if I didn't allow myself to admit it, if I didn't keep it primary in my spirit. It is the thing that I'm here for, writing. And I always wanted to be a published writer. And then I got published in the midst of a pandemic, the day before the storming of the Capitol.
Right.
And those things sort of stole my moment, like, or at least they transformed it. And so I received it in a way that I was not expecting.
Right.
And I have, so I feel like I'm in a bit of a limbo, almost like I am a published author and I'm not a published author. That's what it feels like. It still feels like all of the like accolades and things are happening to this guy named Robert Jones Jr. and I'm watching. That's kind of what it feels like. And I wonder if that stems from my own insecurities about my craft, imposter syndrome, all sorts of things like that. If that's my way of protecting myself against any negativity that might come my way. But yeah, that's so it's been unreal in so many ways. But I am, at the end of the day, thankful that I was able to finish this book, get it published, and that it's out in the world, and that some people are finding value in it. That I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I'm one of them. My wife's one of them, and I can tell from the reaction that there's a whole lot of people that are finding value in it. So I'm so happy for you in that regard. I'm so glad that it's done. Has this been something that's been germinating since like the 90s, or?
The first inkling I got for the idea of this story was probably like my last semester of undergrad in like 2006.
Okay.
And it was my first semester of grad school where I first put pen to paper and said I could do this, because I was afraid to write this story because I had never read a story like it before. And I was afraid of how it might be received by people, that it might offend, which I think it has, and that it might place me in danger in certain ways, which it has not, as far as I know. But yeah, it from start to finish, from the time that I put pen to paper to the time I turned in my last revisions, was 14 years.
14 years. Wow, that is amazing. Labor of love and a lot of tears and sweat and a bunch of other things, I'm
and
sure.
Late nights and
Yeah.
so on. Yes,
Wow.
indeed.
Was that the first story for you that really crystallized in that way, or had you written other things, besides sort of like your social commentary? Were there other things that you had played with, concepts that you had played with, or?
When I was 16, I tried to write a novel called Conjure. and I never finished it because novel writing is difficult, and it was particularly difficult at the age of 16, and so I couldn't. I had a good chunk, but I didn't know how to wrap it up. I didn't know how to make it work, so I put it aside. But that was the only other time that I attempted a big project like a novel outside of the Prophets.
Got it. Got it. Do you feel like that now with all of this 14 years of extra wisdom and knowledge, that might be something you go back to? Or is that something that was just kind of like, okay, I did that. I maybe just kind of had to work that out of my system. Whatever comes next is going to be fresh, you think?
Yeah, because I think I'm currently working on another novel.
Wonderful.
And I don't think I would ever go back to Conjure because it was a 16-year-old writing that with
Mm.
16-year-old craft and ideas and
Got
thoughts that are so childlike. When I look at it, I laugh at some of the things that I wrote.
it.
Some of the other things I go, oh, here's a kernel right here, that he would be a budding writer or whatever, but most of it is not usable. And I like the idea that I could look back at that as like a marker of my progress.
Completely understood. Yeah. Sometimes when I look back on some of my early, the fan art, it's a little embarrassing. Like sometimes I want to take it down, but it's like, you know what? It's a story. It's a
No,
whole thing.
it is
Yeah.
part of the story. If I'm not mistaken, I think how we met was through Friends of Janet.
Okay.
I think that's what it was.
Okay. Pen pals? Because that happened too. A bunch of
We,
people that I'm
we
still in
might
touch
we
with.
might have been pen pals. I'm not 100% sure, but we might have been. And didn't you design their logo?
I did, like in some of the later issues of the magazine, I actually designed and illustrated for the magazine, the fanzine. Yeah. So
I remember.
yeah, I had little
So,
cartoons.
so I've known you at least since then. So that's like 96, 97, something like
that. Yeah. It's incredible.
My goodness.
It blows my mind sometimes, for real.
Yes, it is.
Speaking of that earlier artwork, I'm reminded of a topic that I wanted to discuss with you because I really respect your opinion. It's something that you've referenced a number of times in regards to comic book art, and that is artwork drawn through the white gaze. Now, as a white artist myself, so many of my own personal projects revolve around the likenesses of Black musical artists and cultural figures. And I try to be thoughtful of my own blind spots in this area. And I'm not looking for any absolution here. If I need to sit on the hot seat, so be it. But I've been curious to hear more about what it is that you see or experience when you encounter this type of artwork.
For me, how I define the white gaze is any pressure to conform or create or build your art such that it confirms or makes comfortable a white audience. So for example, there are some pieces of art where you'll have a Black character who behaves in ways that you can tell were crafted specifically for white comfort. Or you'll have stories where you have these Black people who can't solve their own problems, and then in comes the white savior to save them, save the savages from themselves, that kind of thing.
Got it.
So whenever I see those things, I wince because I know them to feel, for me, inauthentic. That the writer or artist was either under pressure to do that, or has so internalized the ways of the society that they don't even realize that they're doing it. And like my mentors, my spiritual mentors, Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, when I'm crafting art, I'm always asking myself, does this need to, if I'm writing this without the white gaze in it, what things don't I need to explain? Whose points of view don't need to be heard? Those sorts of things. I am very clear, or I try to be very clear when I'm crafting, that I'm not succumbing to that urge, that indoctrination that I should translate for a white audience. Because the truth of the matter is, me as a Black queer person, when I'm consuming a piece of art created by a white artist, I'm not expecting them to translate for me. I, as an audience member, if I don't understand something, I do the research and find out. And so that expectation somehow escapes a white audience. White audiences are expected to be catered to in particular ways,
Right.
such that they don't have to do the work. Which then goes back to how I feel about the idea of how blackness is seen in this country as always in servitude, where we're always, we're the cleanup people, we're there to make you feel better, mammy stereotypes, Uncle Tom stereotypes, all of those sorts of things. And so part of my job as a writer, which in itself is sort of reactionary, and I'm trying to find another way of doing this where I don't have to be concerned about those sorts of things.
Thank you so much for sharing that from your point of view of both a consumer and a creator. That's really insightful. When I
Yes.
think about the origin story of the Janet Jackson cartoon project that I'd been doing for about 25 years now, it stemmed from being a teenager and a huge Janet Jackson fan and noticing how, if she's ever depicted at all, when she is depicted through illustration or editorial, it's not very flattering or positive. I feel like what I noticed was there was just like this visual shorthand of stereotypical racist features, these lazy markers that just like indicate, okay, that's a black person, but not ever really taking into account their unique facial features, their personalities, their talent, or their beauty. Now, I grew up watching reruns of the Jackson 5 cartoon, and I also remember when the Harlem Globetrotters guest starred on Scooby Doo. So you'll see a lot of that early stuff. My early work is modeled very much after that cutesy Hanna-Barbera, Rankin Bass type of character design. But that's where it started for me. I was this huge fan, and it was upsetting to see those images because this is Janet Jackson in peak 90s. She's one of the most iconic superstars in the world at the time, and she's still getting this sort of second class treatment. And I think even post Super Bowl nonsense, I think it became even more important to me to make sure that people are aware of her artistry and her legacy in a positive way. So I guess going back and checking in with my own intentions, was I taking, a white savior approach to this art where if I draw Janet in just the right way, or where she's non-threatening or appeasing to white people, to make them comfortable. But I'm hoping that even while I've played in some different illustration styles, some that are cute and whatnot, but I'm hoping what I've actually achieved is just depicting Janet in the manner that she actually looks. She's an objectively beautiful, talented Black woman, and she's a hero to a lot of people and just deserves to be depicted that way.
Um, you brought up a point earlier about Janet's legacy and the way it's been disrespected. That is such a common theme in American history. We go back to Ma Rainey or Bessie Smith or Sister Rosetta Tharpe, all of these foundational Black women who, in some cases, invented whole genres of music, who never got their respect until years, decades, centuries after they're dead. And it is of vital importance. And people sometimes hate the Jan fam because we can be so adamant about what Janet has accomplished. And every Janet Jackson Appreciation Day, I post a thread of tweets of everything that I can think of that Janet, every record she broke, every accomplishment. I do a whole thread so people remember. You're not gonna erase the blueprint. You're just not. And though you attempt, you will know who this woman is and why she is vital. Um, what are you hoping for in this next era of Janet? We were supposed to get the Black Diamond era, but the pandemic sort of threw that out of whack. We're not quite sure what's happening now. She teases these little pieces of things, but we're not 100% sure if and when it's dropping.
Yeah.
Do you have any hopes?
For me, with the unveiling of the whole Black Diamond concept, I think I was hoping for Janet to finally claim her artistry and her legacy. I've always gotten the sense that Janet doesn't really like to draw more attention to herself. So she's very humble, almost to a bit of a fault, to the point where it's allowed people to forget or undermine like the full oeuvre and the importance of her work and the influence that her contributions have made to modern entertainment.
Yeah.
Those contributions are monumental, and I think I was excited that maybe she was finally going to be like, yep, I'm that girl, I did that.
To this day, I see her influence. Normani, uh, um, so many others. Going back some, Britney, um, Beyonce, Rihanna. Like her influence is so ubiquitous. It's like it's literally she's the blueprint for how you make an entertainer a superstar. You even see it in some of her male influences in some of the men who are entertaining too. You know, people tend to say, well, if it's a guy, it's Michael is the influence, and if it's a woman, then Janet is the influence. But no, sometimes you see it in the guys too.
Even Michael was influenced by her. So
Yeah, when Bad came out, he did the Pleasure Principle step in one of his videos.
yep.
And I said, okay, I see you, Mike.
Yeah, so that's what I was really kind of bracing myself for, was this moment where Janet was really just going to own it. What about you? What were you anticipating?
I was looking very forward to because from what I understood, she was going to be working with a variety of producers. So I was looking forward to hearing the sounds, the new sounds she was, going to work with. I was very much interested in what she had to say.
Yeah.
This concept of Black Diamond and being resistant and resilient and still being in this industry after God knows how many decades.
Wow.
I was very interested in what she had to say. And I was also very interested in the evolution of her dancing, because I've watched her go from Don't Stand Another Chance all the way up. The shoulders, honey. Janet was killing them with the shoulders from way back. To see her evolution, because now, she's older. Janet, how old am I? 51. So Janet's going to be 56 in May. She's 5 years older than me. Her dancing has changed. She's become more graceful. And I love to see the fact that first of all, she could still do that if breakdown. That is just remarkable.
Better than the girls half her age, mind you.
Better than the girls half her age. No shade to Ciara, but when she tributed Janet and she did if, it wasn't quite there, but great A for effort. Janet is one of those dancers who's precise. Like the hits the moves have to be hit in a very precise manner. And so I'm very interested in seeing what it looks like for a 56-year-old woman to dance with the level of skill that Janet has. I think of Tina Turner, who was boogieing and doing her thing well into her 70s. So I'm really interested in the trajectory of Janet's career as an older woman, as a mom, as all of these things. I'm really interested in seeing that, and I'm hoping that if Black Diamond is still a thing, that we get to see some of that evolution.
Yes, the evolution. Janet's been going for over 40 years. It's amazing. Now, going back to this notion of influence for a moment, growing up, it was Janet Jackson and another one of our favorites, Wonder Woman, that were actually role models for me, especially Linda Carter's embodiment of Wonder Woman on the TV show. I used to think of this notion of celebrity role models as kind of goofy, but if I'm truly honest about it, those two really had a real impact in shaping who I would become and the adult I wanted to be.
Janet, for a very long time, going back even to the Jackson family specials that used to come on, which is where I first encountered Janet. She always exuded this sense of autonomy that I found very striking. And Linda Carter on the same wavelength exuded this sort of unshakable grace.
That's a great way.
And those two things together were super influential in my life. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like it's those two notions of the strength and vulnerability, which both of them have and just blend
Yes.
so well. Now, if I start talking about Wonder Woman 84, I'll start to get a little fired up, but was I was really excited to see Linda's cameo as Astoria. So maybe we'll get to see her again in a future movie.
You know, the, the problem with the Wonder Woman films, um, there are moments in both of them that I really like.
Agreed.
But I think the overarching problem is this idea that we got to get men to watch this movie. So let's have Steve Trevor mansplaining everything to Wonder
Oh
Woman.
my God, Robert.
You know, it's just like,
Yes.
what I don't want to see Steve Trevor ever again. I
It,
want a feminist film where Wonder Woman is at the center. She's not worried about some man, and she's kicking bad guys' butts. That's what I want to see.
absolutely. It was so simple. That's all we needed. I'm not sure how they messed that up, but 100%. Oh my God, you're preaching to the choir, Robert. Absolutely. Like I said, if I start talking about it, I'll start to get heated. So,
You know, and I recently returned to the first Wonder Woman film
Mhm.
and realized, you know, even my husband said the same thing. The best parts of these movies take place on Themyscira, Paradise Island, when there's no men, when the Amazons are working together and training and laughing and you know, joking and all that kind of stuff. In both of those films, those are the most exciting moments of the films.
Yep.
And in the first film, it's when Diana bucks Steve Trevor's advice and goes to cross no man's land.
Yeah.
Like that is such an exciting moment. Like, you know, and I wish they would have had it so that she made it all the way across and Steve Trevor and them just we forget all about them, and she's the one that makes it across first, and she, you know, disturbs things so
Right.
that the troops can come over. But they had Steve and the other men like go, oh, she's drawing all the fire. Let's sneak over here now and do this thing. Because
Right.
the sense I get from the Wonder Woman films is it's always like she's a strong woman, but not too strong, guys.
Mhm.
So you know you don't have to be
Don't be
intimidated by
scared.
her.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you're 100% in my brain all the way. I watched the first one up until the last 10 minutes. So for me, in that first movie, Wonder Woman loses. I don't even watch the last 10 minutes. I can't. I just can't.
I get it. I get it.
Okay, now that we've ventured into Wonder Woman territory, one of the things you've recently turned me on to was the latest
We are.
Wonder Woman series, the Historia series. But I'm still waiting for volume 2 to arrive in the mail. Aside from a couple of Archie digests here and there, I never got into hero comics as a kid. There was a brief time in the 90s during the Image comic era, the Spawn era with Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, and those guys. And I think the reason that got my attention at the time was more so because I think it was the first time seeing the artists behind the books. I mean, those guys were like rock stars. They were on MTV and stuff. So I think that was interesting to me as a budding artist, thinking about how I might, you know, find a career in the arts. So I hadn't really thought about comic books for a long time as an adult until I saw some of your posts.
Wonder Woman is the first comic book character I fell in love with. I was just, from the moment my father bought me a Wonder Woman comic book at the age of 4, I was super enamored by it. And I think that's how it worked. My father bought me this comic. I read it a zillion times because I didn't know that you can get more comic books. And then I discovered the Super Friends, and she was on that too. And that was all she wrote.
Cartoon?
Cartoons.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
from the 70s. And that was it. I became a comic nerd. And so I have been collecting comic books for over 45 years, but it's really because of Wonder Woman. I'm really interested in what she represents from a feminist point of view, from a humanist point of view. And I really bond with that character and the idea of her. And I'm so thankful to be alive now when Kelly Sue DeConnick is writing this current series, Wonder Woman Historia of the Amazons, which is like the deep feminist dive that I've always wanted to see surrounding Wonder Woman and the Amazons. Like this is like real heavy duty stuff, and the art is just outstanding. And so yeah, I'm glad to have been collecting comics for all these years. They're part of the things that help me to deal with the world we live in. And I'm so happy to be alive now when a talented writer like Kelly Sue DeConnick is writing such a wonderful take on the character that I love.
That's wonderful. For you as a writer and for me as an artist, I think we have an appreciation from slightly different angles. And I'm learning so much from your point of view as well. And it's getting me more excited about it because usually I'm very much a nonfiction reader. My wife and I just had a big anniversary late last year, and we took your book with us on our road trip. My wife read it and she loved it. And I've been trying to get through it. And not to give the impression that I haven't enjoyed it, because to the contrary, as an artist, I've just found myself getting so distracted by the visuals that keep coming up in my head because your writing is just so very rich and has so much visual texture in it. So I'm still working on it. I'm about halfway through. I would love to see you write one of these one day because I feel like teaming you up with an artist would be a wonderful combination. I feel like your sensibilities around storytelling and your compelling kind of visual language is just so strong. So I just, as an aside, I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much. I do try when I'm writing to imagine myself in the space. So I'm making note of details that I'm then transcribing when I imagine myself in that space. And you're the second artist who told me that the writing is very visual. Phil Jimenez,
Right.
Talented, super talented writer. He also told me, it's so cinematic, it's so visual.
Word, yeah.
The ways in which you write. And so thank you for that.
Absolutely. Again, it's great to hear your take as a writer, and not that you're not enjoying the visuals too. It's not like an either or, but I know for me, when I got Historia Volume 1, I was reading it out on the back patio. And when I got to this one particular frame towards the end, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I just flipped out. I literally ran in the house to show my wife, like, oh my God, you've got to see this. I had just never seen anything like it.
You have to tell me which panel that was. I need to know.
It was a very graphic involving an arrow.
Oh, okay. I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, everything leading up to it, but the moment that the moment occurs, again, very cinematic. It was not like reading a book. It was like watching a movie. I just did not anticipate having that kind of experience reading a comic book. It was mind-blowing.
Phil made some really interesting choices on that page that you're talking about how we see the blood first, and then we see what happens, and then there's the spiral.
Yes.
Of the events as they occur. It's just so wild. And I love the fact that in that book, red signifies the violence. So whenever we see red, that's our cue that something is amiss in terms of violence.
Yes. It's just so smart. It's gorgeous. The characters are just stunning. I've truly never seen anything like it, and it's really raised the bar for anything that comes after it, for sure.
Truly, it really has raised the bar. It truly has. I love that photo of Janet. You have the vibe thing in the back. Yes, that is one of my favorite photos of Janet from the Velvet Rope era. It's so sexy, and she's like a siren. I just really love that photo of her.
For the listener, behind me on my wall, there is a framed photo of Janet. It's taken by Ellen von Unwerth from what would become the Velvet Rope album shoot. Janet is in what looks to be like a latex cat suit, and with one of her famous piercings, this is a nipple piercing through her nipple as well as the cat suit. There's also a handwritten note from Janet and Renee, her husband at the time. The Velvet Rope turns 25 this year. Can you believe it? So there's actually some history of that photo for me. I don't know. I've talked about it a little bit. It took me years to kind of feel comfortable, but that was the image that Renee and Janet sent to me so that I might come up with a concept sketch for the Velvet Rope album cover. I was about 19 years old, living with the real cover for 25 years now. I just can't imagine it any other way. So I've always kind of been curious as to what they had imagined, from the request, but they shipped it to me and just kind of said, do your magic. Unfortunately, I was just too green to pull off the image I saw in my own head. What kind of happens for me as an artist is that I will see the final product sort of projected out here in my field of vision, and I try to replicate that. So I had the brilliant idea that this would be a great time to test out a whole new digital painting style that I had never really done before, and I just didn't have the skills to pull it off at the time. So I sent off the sketch. I got a very polite thank you, never really heard about it again. So obviously they went in a different direction, and I just can't imagine it any other way. So yeah, that's my little brush with greatness. It's my little piece of velvet rope history.
This cover is so iconic. Have you ever met Janet?
I have a couple times. Yeah, very briefly, a couple times.
She and I tell this story all the time whenever I talk about Janet.
Hmm.
I'm astounded by how much she can remember about people.
Yeah,
I met her for the first time in 97 at the Virgin Megastore in Times Square for the release of The Velvet Rope.
right.
Then I met her again years later for the release of her book.
Got it.
She said, Robert, right? And it blew my mind. I'm like, this woman had met me 10 years earlier
Right.
and remembered my name.
Yeah, same thing happened to me. Yeah, I met Janet for the very first time. It was a Friends of Janet fan club contest. She flew 35 fans from all over the world to Santa Monica for literally dinner with Janet. And we got to hang out with some of the dancers and hear songs from the Velvet Rope album before it was released. So, yeah, my first time meeting her was back in the summer, just before the release of the Velvet Rope album. There would be a couple quick hellos in between, but then years later, I paid way too much for one of those meet and greets in Las Vegas during the Metamorphosis tour. I just felt like this was probably going to be my last chance to really thank Janet for seeing something in my work and supporting me in those early days. It's kind of goofy as it was. Now, walking up to her, I don't think she recognized me, but when I mentioned the cartoons and thanked her, she kind of paused and took a step back, and then she looked me square in my eye, like there was this moment of realization, and then she full out said my first and last name, as if to confirm, and I was just floored.
She looked at you right in your eyes. That I sometimes I'm taken aback by that because the public perception of her is that she's so quiet and shy. But when she talks to you, she looks you dead in the
Yeah,
eyes.
it's truly a moment that you will never forget. But at the same time, I try to be aware of like energy, right? Like Janet is just one person, and we all feel like we know her because she's been with us our entire lives, but she doesn't necessarily know any of us. There's so many of us that love her. She doesn't really know us. Um, so when you're coming at somebody, and you have so much love for that person,
Right.
but at the same time, it can be a lot to receive. So I remember I wanted to be very mindful about how I
Yeah.
would express this to her, just trying to be very quiet about it. And then when she looked at me and said that, I got that huge lump in my throat, like I was going to cry, and I nearly lost it. It was hard to recover from being seen that way, by someone you really admire and respect so much. Like, wow, she remembers.
No, I agree with that. That you have to be very mindful when interacting with someone like Janet because um, everyone's demanding something from her. And so you have to be like, I'm grateful you gave me this moment. Love you. Bye. Just so that it's bite sized, so she could actually maybe receive it.
So yeah, after that, I completely lost my train of thought and had that deer in the headlights moment. And then before I knew it, security was like, okay, thanks, next. So yeah, you get a very short amount of time, and you never really get to express all that she means to you. But I hope she knows how much she is loved and appreciated by all of us, even if we can't always have those one-to-one moments with her.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I cherish that those meetings. I do. And they're enough for me. Like I don't if I never meet her again, that's fine. It's enough that she gave me those 2 moments.
Robert, what else is coming up for you? I know you mentioned you're in the early stages of your next book, but are there any upcoming events where people might be able to get to see you in person?
Um, I will be in Pittsburgh in June for an event. I will be in France in September for the Festival Americain. Um, and I think that's really all that I have planned because what I'm hoping to do as 2022 winds down is sort of fill myself off so that I could work completely on this novel. Like I want to commit my full creative energy to this novel and not have to worry about this or that or these other things. So hopefully that, and somewhere in the future, after the second novel is done, I'd like to write a comic book.
I would love to see that as well.
I would love to write a comic book. I have some ideas. We'll see if that comes to pass.
I will 1,000% be rooting for that. I think that would just be amazing.
Thank you.
Well, I'm hoping maybe we'll get to have our Black Diamond moment. Maybe we'll end up in the same town at the same show. And
Where do you live, Amy?
I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area these days.
You're in the Bay Area. Okay.
I actually grew up in Detroit, but I've been in the Bay Area now for almost 20
I
years.
did not know that. You grew up in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay. I did not know. I've never been to Detroit. I've never been to the Bay Area. Two places that I'm actually interested in going. I want to see Detroit, and I have friends in the Bay Area who have been begging me for years to come visit. So
nice. I went out to New York for the All For You tour. That was the first and only time I ever went.
Wow. Where did I see All For You? Oh, I saw it in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where I was living at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, so you're in New York.
I am in Brooklyn, New York. Bed-Stuy, do or die.
Well, Robert, one day I hope we get to have that magical moment in person. Maybe I get to hug you.
Yes.
It's been a real treat to have this time with you today, and I'm so grateful that you were able to carve out some time.
I am quite thankful, Amy, that you even wanted to talk to me. This has been a long time coming. Our meeting has been a long time coming. We've known each other for such a long time. This feels so natural. So like you, I can't wait till we meet face to face in person.
Absolutely. Robert, much love to you. I'm sure we'll be nerding out over Historia Volume 2 any moment now.
Please, because I'm looking for a discussion partner. Thank you.
Okay, Robert, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
And that's my first ever conversation with Robert Jones Jr. I highly recommend Robert's award-winning novel, The Prophets. So visit sonofbaldwin.com to see how you can support independent Black-owned booksellers when you purchase your own copy, now in paperback. Robert and I actually recorded this discussion a few months back, so as of the date of this podcast release, Robert has retired his Son of Baldwin's social media platforms to focus on his health and his writing, but he still is active with his website and periodic updates, so make sure you sign up for his newsletter at sonofbaldwin.com. That's sonofbaldwin.com, sonofbaldwin.com. As always, you can find my website at amybruckner.com. That's AIMEEBRUCKNER.com. If you enjoyed that conversation, I hope you'll take a moment to rate, review, share, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next episode of this limited series. Hope to see you again next time on This Is How It Starts with Amy Stevlin.